So hello, Gail and Mavis.
Hi, Anita. How are you?
I'm doing great. I would like to introduce you to this little guy behind the book. His name is Cairo. He's my grandson, born in March of 2020. So Cairo's life began just at that time when Derek Chauvin took a knee and murdered George Floyd in May of 2020. So as my two daughters were preparing for a Black Lives Matter protest in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, multiple streams of experiences came together for my family. I walked into the room where Olivia, my younger daughter, was sitting and immediately noticed that she had a very solemn look on her face. So I sat down next to her and we had this heartfelt conversation in which we realized that our family represented three generations of protesting. My mother, myself, and now my daughters, all protesting for the same exact thing, our birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which we were born. The first generation was my mother, an activist who lifted her voice against injustice, fighting for civil rights, welfare rights, and basic human rights. She took a very strong stance on behalf of Black students during the initial merger years at the Steel Valley School District. The second generation was my own, as I recalled a defining moment in my own personal identity as a young Black teen. In the fall of 1971, it was an intense school year under forced integration, and I entered Steel Valley Intermediate School. Shortly after arrival, I found myself standing outside of my new school in a large open field in the presence of police cars and flashing lights and emergency vehicles. A bomb threat had been phoned into the school and the entire school evacuated, all because people like me were in the building. Standing there in that field that day was like a Sankofa moment. Though I walked onto that field as one, I stood on the backs of millions. Unlike my ancestors who traversed the middle passage of enslavement, I wasn't greeted with whips and chains when I arrived at Steel Valley Intermediate. Yet the intention to rob me of my identity and bring me under subjection in a new environment was the same. I was simply expected to fall into my place at the back of the line. All of this meant I had a choice to make. Either let this environment and back of the line expectations turn me into this assimilated version of myself, or be like Harriet and resist. That family conversation led Olivia to pose a gut-wrenching question about Cairo's future as a Black male growing up in a racialized society. Will Cairo have to protest in his lifetime once again for the birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which he was born? The Cairo question reflects a deep concern in the heart of Olivia as a mother, as she ponders the survival lessons that she will have to teach her son as he grows older and older. It also energized my passion as a grandmother. So Olivia's concern and my passion set the tone for my second independent book project, Cultivating Change from the Inside Out, The Power of Being Human. The Cairo Question and the Cultivating Change book added a whole new layer to my life coaching practice, and I created the Activism to Coaching Model, which includes the Social Impact Mastermind, a transformational journey towards anti-racism. In addition to dismantling racism through laws and legislation, or politics and economics, I truly believe that personal transformation and accountability play a key role in manifesting social change. So there are three keys that are necessary to empower that journey towards anti-racism. The first is knowing yourself. The second is connecting to others. And the third is accepting accountability. So transformation towards anti-racism begins with awareness and understanding of racism in multiple dimensions: individual, interpersonal, institutional, and structural. My role as a coach is to inform and empower. A coaching approach in a mastermind setting enables you to deconstruct yourself, diving deeply into your thoughts, your ideas, your beliefs, your assumptions, while examining what emerges in your words, your actions, and your behaviors. My objective in developing the Activism through Coaching model is to create a brave space for you to engage in conversations about race, personal transformation, and the journey towards anti-racism. The coaching process itself promotes empowerment in four key areas: courage, conversation, relationship, and accountability. Now, I'm sure you can sense how passionate I am about my grandson's future. Yet it actually goes much deeper than that, because it's not just about his future that concerns me. Racism is a disruptor of health and wellness in mind, body, and spirit. When racism is present, society is hurt because something other than health and wellness emerges, and we are all impacted in one way or another. Inequity is directly related to social determinants of health. Those conditions in the environment in which you and I are born, where we live, where we learn, work, worship, play, and our dimensions of health and wellness in mind, body, and spirit are directly related to these social determinants. And I think we can all agree that a good environment is one that supports health and wellness as a function of human growth and development for all people. I often use the analogy of a coin to describe the dual nature of life in America. One coin with two streams of experiences that can be strikingly different. It's both fearful and challenging to stand on the edge of the coin to get an insightful 360 view of the reality of racial inequity. It's a way to engage in transformative conversations about racism. In his book, The Conversation, Robert Livingston describes conversation as one of the most powerful ways to build knowledge, awareness, and empathy to cultivate change. Conversation includes seeking and speaking truth to empower knowledge and understanding of racism and to increase confidence and commitment to engage in racial dialogue. Conversation becomes a social exchange that dispels the fear that talking about race will only make it worse. Like Livingston, I assert that personal beliefs and biases must be recognized and addressed as the first step towards progress. The framework created by Livingston rests on three essential concepts that must be addressed in your transformative journey towards anti-racism. First is understanding the problem of racism and where it comes from. Second is caring enough about the problem and the people it harms. And third is willingly contributing to solve the problem. So the answer to the Cairo question depends on people like you, putting your faith in a different future for generations of children just like him. Ultimately, we all share the accountability for what the future looks like. So I encourage you to ask yourself these three accountability questions. Am I willing to learn about racism? Am I willing to be a part of the solution? And am I willing to put my faith in a different future? So at this point, I'd like to bring Mavis and Gail into the conversation. They each have attended either the beta test of the 8-week Anti-Racism Mastermind or the 4-hour Anti-Racism group workshop that I had conducted. So the two questions that I would like you all to answer, Gail and Mavis, are: which accountability question resonates most with you in pondering the Cairo question? And how would you describe the anti-racism coaching experience you had? So I'm going to start with Gail, and if you can give us your insight.
So I had a hard time at first figuring out which one to answer, just because I think they're all so crucial, each one of them. I mean, been learning about racism for decades, since the 60s and 70s, and I was willing to learn about this, being a part of the solution then, and certainly am now. And I think participating in this is part of my way of trying to participate in it more actively and more directly. I am more than willing to but I think the one that really got me is, am I willing to put my faith in a different future? I am more than willing to put my faith in a different future. I think we all have an obligation to ourselves and to humanity to step into that place where truth has to live. And the truth is that we are all created equal. We come here from the greatest source of love, and we are here to experience whatever life we choose to experience. And it has nothing to do with the color of our skin. But we have made it that in this country, in this world, and it's time that has to change. Time has been over time, but it certainly is now.
Thank you so much, Gail, for your words. And Mavis?
Well, I'm all in. I'm just all in. I am so willing to learn about racism. I thought I knew so much, but I don't. I've been very interested in it for years as well. But it's like going through those glass stories, you use in class, the metaphor, and discovering a whole part of my subconscious that holds these beliefs that are probably part of the whole systemic scene in the country. And I want to look that right in the eyes. I want to learn about it. I want to be accountable for it. I want to know what actions I can take to change the future. So I am fully willing to accept accountability. I'm excited that we have this point now, as painful as it is, to start making changes. And I'm excited what I can share with my friends about this who have no exposure to various people of color. So I'm all in, girl. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing. So I think you both would agree with me that the answer to solving the Cairo question is relatively simple, very challenging, but relatively simple. Cairo will not have to protest if you and I come together to do two things. First, put our faith in the possibility of a different future, free from the disruptive forces of racism, no matter the skin color, the zip code, or the socioeconomic status. And two, drive towards cultivating change from the inside first and then out into the world. And that, I believe, is the real power of being human and impacting social change. So congratulations on taking the first step to starting your journey towards anti-racism. Now is the time to make the decision to personally transform your life and the future by applying for a discovery call with me. There's no obligation or commitment with the discovery call. It simply opens the door to a conversation about your joining the mastermind. So grab the link and submit your discovery call application today.